What is up, everybody? Welcome to AK Plays. I'm AK. Let's play.
Warning. Your division affiliation has been disavowed. You are now marked as rogue.
Alright, today I'm going to be showing you a AR DPS hybrid build that uses a G36C. Now, the reason I made this build is because I wanted to run something that nobody can say is OP. It doesn't use Striker, it doesn't use a full gear set, and it uses a G36C, not a House or an M4. Now, you can switch in a lightweight M4, and then this build is insanely strong, but even with a G36C, running nothing OP, completely off meta, this is an extremely fun build that actually does some work. So the primary weapon is a G36C with vicious, accurate, responsive, and then those are the attachments. And then our backup is a lightweight M4 with sustained, predatory, determined, and those attachments. And then your pistol, just keep around your cool-headed determined pistol to get an alt back if you need to. But also I'll show you that you can switch in a lightweight M4. I would particularly do this one with vicious, accurate, responsive. I like accurate because it makes it so the beams are way more, well, accurate. And our first gear piece is our chest, which is rolled stamina, health, exotic damage resilience, and ammo capacity, and that is a Predator's Mark vest. Our mask is rolled for firearms, critical hit chance, and burn resistance, and that's going to give us a 3-piece Predator's Mark bonus for AR damage. Our Banshee knees are rolled for firearms, health, and then those minors should be shock, burn, and disrupt resistance. And then we have our Banshee holster, which has critical hit chance, and our Striker gloves, which have rolled for firearms, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and AR damage. And you can see you get some stability from the Striker. And then we have our Ninja Bike rolled for firearms with stability and ammo capacity. And our gear mods are stamina, critical hit chance, and support station healing speed, and support station range. Those support station mods to give you some bit of healing because this build doesn't have any native healing. Support station healing speed on the holster as well. And then we have stamina, critical hit chance, and support station healing speed on the knees. On the mask, you're going to have stamina crit chance again. And then you're going to have stamina crit chance and stamina crit chance on the chest piece. So overall, you're going to be getting some good amount of crit chance here at 38% with good crit damage and headshot damage, a whole bunch of accuracy and stability, and then a little bit of reload speed bonus from the Predator's Mark. And overall, you're getting a lot of great bonuses from those gear sets on the hybrid. And now our skills, we're going to have a booster shot for damage to damage resilience, and we're going to have our immunizer, which is going to be your main heal, and a recovery link to get up your team members or to save yourself if you're solo. Talents, we're running Adrenaline to keep off status effects, Critical Save to get more resistance, On the Move to get more resistance, and Precision to get us up to a good amount of crit chance if you hit a headshot. However, if you're running a teammate, you can switch to Combat Medic instead of Precision and have either yourself or the teammate run a pulse. But this is the build. It is awesome. You're going to be hitting extremely hard with the high firearms, and the stamina is going to keep you somewhat tanky. You're not going to be a tank, but you're going to definitely have a little bit more resistance to damage than you would with a lot of other DPS builds. This build is primarily based on your headshots and your ability to beam with all of that stability and accuracy. So as you're going to see, even with a G36C, which doesn't have a whole lot of native accuracy on it, is going to be able to beam these people in skirmish, which is absolutely insane. Now, I really enjoyed this build. I had a bunch of fun with it, and not only can it beam from distance, which is insane, but when you get up close and you get some responsive proc, it hits really hard. The biggest number I saw was in the DZ. I saw a critical headshot that hit for 28. I know that's not insane, especially when there's Banshees that hit in the mid-30s and Lonestars that hit in the high 30s, but for a build like this to hit 28 critical heads, that's pretty good. It's really a strong build, and to be able to beam like this is really cool. I'm not much of a beam person. I usually run SMGs. It just feels easier to me. I can get up in people's faces and move around, but for running ARs, I haven't done it in a long time. In 1.7 I used to beam, but for beaming, again, it felt really good, and this build was really good at it. But I basically made this build on a whim because somebody in one of my comments, which I agreed with, said that Everybody runs, first I had somebody who's talking that they didn't like Striker, which I understand, Striker's getting a nerf, so that's going to happen. And then I had someone else who was talking about weapon diversity and how the House and the lightweight M4 are the only guns that are really used. And I agreed with him. And in an effort to not sound like a hypocrite, I started trying out other weapons. And so I tried out a bunch of different things. I tried out different submachine guns. I tried using the UMP. I tried using the ACR. I tried using the AK-47. Haha, the best gun ever. But too bad it's terrible in this game. The only useful time to use the AK-47 is on a 7K striker with 100 stacks. Then it hits like a machine, but it's so hard to get there with that low rate of fire that it's really not worth it because you could use so many better things. But in an effort to not sound like a hypocrite talking about weapon diversity, I wanted to go out and find the best non-meta weapon. And I found this G36C that was actually really good, had great talents, and so I optimized it and tried it out. And basically, it did some great damage. The rate of fire is not too bad, and its accuracy and stability on this build work really well. So I think it might work well on a Striker build as well. But on this build, it really, it did some serious work. It did a bunch of damage per shot. The rate of fire kept people down. And overall, it beamed pretty well. So I was very happy with the G36C. I was very happy with this build, but you could easily switch in a House or a lightweight M4 on this build, and you'd be running a build that can easily compete with the meta. I do have a clip at the end of the video of me using a lightweight M4 on this build, and it's basically just as good as a Striker at beaming, and it hits like a 7K Striker with about 20 stacks. And you don't have to worry about stacks, you don't have to worry about your premium accuracy, and so you can kind of fire a little more freely, which I enjoyed. I was running with Slacks, and he was running his 7K Striker, not at this moment, but this is later. And I was running with him, and he had a 7K Striker, and he was beaming people, and I said, hey, well, I get to beam people, but I don't have to worry about missing shots because I don't have Striker. And it was kind of a cheeky comment, just kind of joking around, but then I realized that's kind of true. It's nice to not run Striker. I don't need to worry about being the most accurate human on the planet. I don't need to worry about being basically a superhuman aimbot. But, it's really fun. I got to spray some people. I got to use an off-meta build. And when I went in the DZ, I had multiple people come up to me and ask me what I was running. In that first clip that's at the start of the video, the other guy ran from me at the end of it after he got ulted up by the green, and then I ran into them and some other people later on, and people were looking at my build, they were aiming at me and looking up and down, and I had one guy that said, "Are you running Banshee?" And I'm like, no, believe me, I'd be hitting way harder if I was running Banshee, but I'm beaming people, and they don't understand how I'm hitting 28s and how I'm hitting mid-20s. Most of the shots are going to hit in the mid to high teens. Some will hit in the low 20s. If you get a lucky crit headshot, you're going to probably hit about 25 to 28. But overall, the build really did more than I expected. I was going to make this build purely in an effort to run something off meta and to run a gun that was off meta. But the more I used it, the more work that it did, and I really enjoyed this build. I hadn't beamed in so long that I forgot how good it feels. And so here it is in the DZ. I switched out the G36C for a lightweight M4. This lightweight M4 has vicious, accurate, and responsive. And oh my gosh, you can see this beams just as good as any Striker. Obviously my accuracy is not great, but that's a user error. That's not the build's fault. So basically with a lightweight M4, this build is very competitive and can definitely stand with the meta. I was fighting against all these guys, and by the time that we got done with this, we came back out and there were tons of people, and we had no idea how many people we were fighting. However, this was like the most fun server we'd ever been on, like in so long. We broke our #1 rule and we came to game chat after this fight, and it was the best decision. These guys were hilarious, we had a bunch of fun, these were some really cool dudes. And we basically just hung around and talked on this server for like 2 hours with all these people. So these guys were really cool guys, and they were definitely putting up a good fight. The only issue is they're fighting against Slack's 7K Striker and this new build for me with the DPS Hybrid, which I think they were running mostly SMGs, a couple shotguns, maybe a couple ARs, but I don't think that they had builds that were meant to fight it AR beam distance, and so we had a little bit of an advantage, and definitely these are really good builds. I mean, this hybrid and his 7K striker are very, very strong builds and very hard to compete with. But overall, back to this build, it was a ton of fun to run. I got to get some huge beams, and as soon as I hit a headshot and got that precision procced, and my critical hit chance jumps up to, I believe it gives you 12%, and so 38 would then become about 50%. And at 50% critical hit chance, oh my gosh, this build is nuts. When you get those crits and they're hitting like crazy, that's when you're going to see some serious melting. When I don't hit headshots, the people usually aren't going to melt. It's going to be more of a long drawn out fight. It's going to be a beam that feels moderately strong. But as soon as I hit a headshot and get that good amount of critical hit chance, this melts. It's a very, very strong build. And the only downside, which if you're paying attention you've probably seen, is that I don't have combat medic on. So when you're running with a team, you have to really think about that. And I kind of was apologizing to Slacks pretty heavily because I'm like, oh, sorry man, I don't have combat medic. I'm kind of getting us screwed over. And but the issue is, if you have a teammate, you should probably take off combat medic, or I'm sorry, you should probably take off precision and put on combat medic, and then have whoever your teammate is run a pulse. We didn't do that, but eventually I do put on combat medic and try to help out. The build sacrifices a little bit of damage for that, but it's much better to have a whole nother teammate shooting than lose out altogether. But that's the build. I hope you enjoy the video. There's a little tribute to this server at the end because they were so cool and I enjoyed these guys so much. I friended a couple of them, but I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments.
What you say? That you only meant well, 'cause you did. What you say? That it's all for the best, 'cause it is. What you say?